You're listening to Head South Radio. I'm your host, Cat Meyer, founder of Head South. This podcast is dedicated to prioritizing pleasure and removing the stigma and shame around sex. We're here to explore the wide landscape of sex, intimacy, and relational wellness with curiosity, honesty, and zero judgment. The conversations are for educational and entertainment purposes only. They are not a substitute for personalized medical, mental health, or professional advice. And now, on to the show. I'm so glad. This is a long overdue interview. I've been wanting to interview you and or your co-founder, Stephanie, since I met you guys over a year ago. And so I'm excited to have you on. To get started, we're going to do a few icebreakers, and then we'll move into the interview. So the first icebreaker I have is, would you rather have sex that only ever lasted 3 minutes or 3 hours?
I honestly, I think 3 minutes if it's really good, because, and maybe I'm taking this question like too literally, for like the point of an icebreaker, but I'm like, okay, I can use time before and after for like foreplay and cuddling and snuggling. So I'm like, okay, I'll do like
Yeah.
the deed for 3 minutes. And if I can get there, then we're good.
If all parties involved
All
have a
parties
pleasurable
involved.
experience. If you didn't have to work, what would you do with your life?
I didn't have to work. Not that I'm skilled for this at all, but I would love to have my own farm and just like I don't want to escape, but like kind of to like a magical just farmland where we're growing all of our food and things seem peaceful. So maybe that's more of a fantasy, but that's what I would like to do.
I'm going to say that it is a very big romantic fantasy novel, just because, as you know, like my partner is in farming. And so we always laugh about like there is this romantic version of farming in social media. And it's like one of the hardest jobs. But the
So
idea of
glorious.
slow living
So
and
living.
like being able to provide for yourself as well as loved ones and friends, like having a homestead is absolutely such a dream. Like my dream too. But it's
It's
also like,
like the biggest little farm, that
yeah.
dog, and then
Mhm.
like delusional cottage core stuff that I see on social media, like bringing
Exactly.
the two together.
Yeah. But I'm right there with you. Like I would love to have that life. And that's kind of what I want to move towards as time goes by, is like more of that type of living. Are you dominant or submissive sexually?
I'm dominant, 1000%. I just like I am in my life, I am in the bedroom, and I've just been vocal about what I want since day one.
Would you rather never have oral sex again or never have penetrative sex again?
Never have oral. I like love my penetrative sex life very much.
If you could create your ideal pornography, what would it feature?
I feel like there's so many cool like new ones out there. Also like far more like done by women right now. So like Erica Lust. I love like the audio erotica stuff that's happening. Like I think what Caroline Spiegel does with Quinn is amazing, and also just like making like the men super submissive. I like that. So if I could like be featured or just like jump into one of the Quinn audio erotica series, say no more. That's all I need. I love them.
Yeah, I like that you mentioned that because I think the audio erotica, um, I love that it kind of allows you to use your imagination versus like visually being stimulated.
I agree. And it's like, yeah, I get to like go there and create whatever it looks like. And that to me is like so
Yes.
cool.
Yeah, we like expand upon it versus like seeing it and like that is it. Like you're not being told again, you're allowing yourself to be the dominant one even in the storytelling of your fantasy.
1000%. It's like when you read a book and you like envision the characters and then it gets made into a movie. And I'm like, no, 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 no. This is not right.
Yeah. Who
That's how we
casted
exhibit.
this?
Yeah, that's my job.
Yeah. Would you rather never come again or never be able to have your favorite meal again?
Okay, probably the meal, because especially with pleasure gap in women, like I'm like very proud of my orgasms, like that. And I also am such like a food freak, so I'm like, fine, I'll find there's other great food out there, but like being able to come is top priority.
Would you rather be tied up or tie someone else up?
I know I'm dominant, but I think I'd rather be tied up just to like switch. I do like the idea of like control, obviously, but like I'll let someone else take the reins for once.
Mhm. Yeah, with tying up, I like both. Like, I like doing that, and I also like receiving that as well, and like just relinquishing control. It feels I we have an episode where I talked to my friend Tommy, and we went to a BDSM kink rope tying class, and both of us are restorative yoga teachers, and we speak to the fact that like you feel so comforted by being like bound in that way, and there's so much like connection to restorative yoga and being wrapped up and swaddled in blankets, and we use like straps and things to hold people and
Right.
contain you. And so that feeling is the same feeling that I get from being tied up, as well as like tying someone else up. Like for anyone who hasn't explored that for themselves, it is actually very relaxing for some people. Like for myself, like if I find it very relaxing to do either role of being tied up or tying up. Like it's very methodical. It feels like making friendship bracelets with someone's body.
It's a craft. Oh my God, I love
It's a
that. Looking
craft.
at it through
Yeah.
that lens, I wish like that was shouted from the rooftop because I think the like go-to stigma of it is like constriction and restraint and like all of that, but like seeing it through the lens of almost like comfort and connection, that's really,
Mm-hmm.
I like that.
Yeah, there's a different approach that you could take versus, yeah, I think it can look very like bound and restrictive and scary and intimidating. And like, and that's one version of it that can feel very pleasurable for a lot of folks. But like for others, it can feel very relaxing to release and relinquish any need to control. And then like your physical body relaxes into that container. Like the muscles in your body can release because they're being held. And so that's kind of how I approach
Love
rope
that.
tying and that experience for myself as well as partners.
I'm learning. I
Yeah.
love that.
Our last icebreaker is marry, fuck, kill, beaches, mountains, desert.
That's really hard. And again, I take these things too literally. So I'm like, am I living there? Which beach is it? So to not waste your time of how my brain works, I think I would, no, I hate this question. I don't want to kill any of them. Okay, I'll kill, fuck the desert and marry the beach. I don't know. I don't feel confident in that answer. But
It's a
I think
tough
I would
one.
marry the beach. There's something so
Hmm.
special about the ocean, no matter like it's yeah, the ocean is just so magical. I would love to marry it if I could.
I'm somewhat similar. I'm a little different in that I would marry the beach, I would fuck the mountains, and I would kill the desert. As much as I love going out to the desert, I do love, like, I love hiking in the mountains. I love seeing like green mountains, like lush green mountains. So I definitely fuck those. But I would
Right.
kill the desert. I can
Okay.
do without the desert. Not
Okay.
to try to convince you
No, you're
to
real. That
be
was really
to be
convincing.
team mountain.
I'm gonna be, this will keep me up at night.
Yeah, 2 weeks later you're gonna be texting me being like, we need to talk about that
I
very
switched
fuck
my
kill.
answer. Yeah. We need to re-record.
And so that moves us into, how do you define intimacy?
I define intimacy. I definitely would have defined intimacy probably different before I entered this world as like business versus like I've just seen so many different aspects and learned so much about the business, about others, about myself. But now that I've like gathered so many viewpoints and different types of aspects in this industry, I define intimacy as like deep comfort and safety. I like love that feeling because intimacy doesn't have to necessarily be sexual, but like even like I was hanging out with a group of girls over the weekend. It was five of us, really simple, calm setting. And it felt like such a safe, comfortable, familiar setting that I was like, this is intimacy. And that was like very pleasurable. So I think having, especially when every day and you open your phone or turn on the news, it feels like the world is on fire and you like can't run away from it, quite literally on fire. Having like a sense of deep connection with someone is extremely intimate and like being able to feel that comfort is nothing is sexier to me than like feeling safe with someone. I'm like, this is a beautiful feeling, and that's intimacy.
I love that. And then I'd love for you to introduce who you are, what you do. Take it
Love
away.
that. Take it away. Hannah Hutton. I am one of the founders of Personal Fave Co. and Shameless founder, like I love Cat because we both have lube companies and we both love fun packaging. So like here I am, shameless founder. I'm always packing. I always got my lube by my side. And I have been like, this is, even though we've had our company for over 4 years, it still feels like such a new journey than based off of what I'm used to. So 13 years ago, joined a company that had just launched the Honest Company, and it was like baby products, mom products, subscription, like cliche startup unicorn. And it was really cool. And so when Stephanie approached me to like do something similar to that, but in the sexual health world, my brain had just never ever gone there because my own sexual health was an afterthought. I didn't really prioritize that or like see it for my personal self or from a business standpoint. So when she broke it down to me, it was like I like entered a whole new world. And so now having this like own company and being so proud of not only the products, but just the narrative of diffusing shame and stigma and empowering people to prioritize pleasure. It's wild to like run a company and also learn every single day, which I love. I'm grateful.
So that brings us back to one of my favorite questions that I ask, I think, most, if not all of my guests. What was your sex education like?
It's interesting. Stephanie and I met in ninth grade and we grew up on the East Coast together. And we went to a very progressive school. We grew up in a progressive town, but it was still like the curriculum around it felt either really like almost transactional and medical, like you're just learning about anatomy and like women get periods type of thing, or it was fear-based. And so neither of that was like enticing or sexy to me. So I was just kind of like, this class is annoying and like a chore. And it was also like cliche, like, oh, it's awkward, or like sometimes only the girls are in this class, or sometimes it's co-ed. That was weird as well. And then on a personal level, it's not like my parents wouldn't talk about it, but it was you learned from like all your girlfriends really about
Mhm.
it. And whether that was right or wrong, I would, when you're in middle school and high school, like having a friend that's like 1 or 2 grades older than you, like feels like, wow, they're like an older kid. That's so cool. We're like now all my friends are like a wide range of ages. But so it's like hearing about their firsts and their experiences. And like that to me was my sexual education. And
Mhm.
honestly, like in middle school, all of like I have a lot of guy friends and like we would just like make out with each other. That was like my sexual education. And like for better or for worse, like we were drinking in high school. Like I grew up in a city and that was like that played a role in your own sexual discovery too. And I hope that like when my kids are in middle school and high school, I have far more open conversations with them. And even earlier too, I think it's the shame is so, and I don't think like my parents didn't shame me or anything, but it also wasn't like they weren't telling me to go out there and get laid either. There was no like what's the appropriate thing and how to have these conversations because I don't think they had the tools. And so
Mhm.
I want to be able to like make sure that the tools are there on like what healthy and appropriate conversations look like, whether it's curriculum or like in a family. Because mine was just like, oh, we're like 17 taking shots of vodka and making out with each other. Like that's
Mhm.
not proper education.
Yeah, and it's similar to my experience as well. And I was actually the
I
friend.
think about your
I,
experience. Yes, with the dirt. I like keep going. Sorry, because I loved
yeah,
picking.
no, like educating my friends, and drawing up like graphs and information. And so I think that is such a big part of sex education is this peer to peer. And I'm a big supporter and on the board of a group called the Youth Sexpert Program, where they train children, because that's the thing is that not children, but like teenagers,
Right.
young adults who are sexually active. And it's one of the most effective ways to educate is through that channel of peer to peer, and they're supplying these teenagers, young adults with the accurate information they need. So it's not just like, oh, I did this thing and 2 years ago I hooked up with this guy and like I learned this and I looked it up on the internet. It's really, really inclusive, comprehensive education that they are distilling around pleasure, around consent, all of these subject matters that are so important that we didn't get. Like, yes, we got, I think for most of us, we got clinical
Yeah, oh yeah.
and very anatomical, like you mentioned, but there was never conversations around pleasure. Even like I had a supportive family and parents who like there was parts of it that like you didn't discuss, and then there's other parts that like like took me to the gynecologist to learn about these things, but none of these conversations had the word pleasure and like what my experience and my body was going through during these interactions.
I love that you're a part of that group. I think that that kicks so much ass. And sorry to cut you off. I
Yeah.
just like it made me think even younger, like I'll see parents with kids, like toddlers, and they're like touching themselves, and they're obviously not trying to like pleasure themselves by any means, but as a society, we're like instantly being like, don't do that, like don't do that. And like even down at like an early age, you're
Mm-hmm.
like instilled with this like, oh, what I'm doing is like shameful. And like, yes, we don't
Mm-hmm.
need to be in public playing with our genitalia, but like also I don't like how do we make it so it's like we don't teach like, a 7-year-old girl who's like curious of what why that feels nice, like, okay, that's something you can do alone in like your bedroom and like I get why that might feel nice and like this is why you wouldn't do it in public. But I think we're just so like reactive in the moment, being like, stop, 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 stop. And like
Yeah.
the shame begins so early. And so I
Mm-hmm.
love that you have that like peer to peer. That's just like super empowering. I want to learn more about that.
Yeah. Yeah, they're really great. It's funny what you were just saying. I just watched the Chelsea Handler special that just came out on Netflix, and she talks about like when she was a kid and going to a sleepover and like discovering that because she broke her arm and then like put her cast down there and then was like, "Oh, this feels amazing." And then like got invited to a sleepover where they were like, we're going to do this. And like all these little girls were like exploring and just touching themselves under their sleep. It's the fun. I don't want to ruin it. I don't want to
No, I
spoil
can't.
Chelsea
I'm gonna
Handler's
watch it tonight.
comedy special, but I highly recommend watching it. It's so great. And I was like, and people don't talk about that either of like, to your point, like we're like people are exploring and touching their bodies. And yes, like you don't want public indecency, but also then like you don't want to shame someone to the point of like, then they don't have a connection to their bodies. And I've talked to guests about this in certain cultures where it's completely like, even for health reasons, like women aren't allowed to touch certain parts of their body or see certain parts of their body, and that disconnect like neurologically affects women's ability to experience pleasure because at such a young age they were told like, no, no, that's not for you, like don't touch down there, don't do that. And then as adult women they're like wondering why they're lacking any sensation, and it's because neurologically it's been developed that that does not belong to them or that it's not for their experience.
That's horrendous.
It's very shocking, but it's something where, there's sexologists, and my guest on that episode spoke to that of like how she's helping women kind of re-empower them to reconnect with their bodies and rewire their neurological experience around pleasure so that they, when their body experiences touch and experiences pleasure, that it connects to their brains and they can fully embody that. It's
I
really
love
cool.
that. That's amazing. And not to like get political, but with the overturn of Roe v. Wade, like not only is that taking away our control over what we choose for our body, but there's so much subtext of like what we should and shouldn't be doing. And like it's for like deep, deep subtext is like, why are you having sex for pleasure and being a floozy slut?
Hmm.
And it's like,
Yeah.
why is that an issue? Please go fuck yourself. Sorry, I speak French, I guess, with all this
Yeah.
cussing. Excuse me.
No, don't apologize. I mean, it's very real of like what has been rolling out since the fall of Roe v. Wade, and like the fact that like they're limiting pleasure products in certain states, and like you have to register to be able to own sex toys, but you don't have to register to own a gun. Like there's certain things that are happening right now that like maybe people aren't aware of, but it's quite frightening, and it does speak to exactly that of like the ownership of pleasure and how do I want to phrase this? Like it's an intrinsic right. It's a birthright to experience pleasure. And yet there is a policing of pleasure specifically on women and
Clitoris is
women's
the only
bodies.
part of a body that is made for pleasure, and it's on our
Hmm.
bodies.
Hmm.
Why are you wanting to take that away? Because they're scared. Sorry, that could be
Yeah,
a whole other podcast.
that's a whole other podcast. Well, that leads into my next question of how has working and building a business in sexual wellness shaped your perspective around pleasure, self-care, and intimacy?
I have gotten so empowered and also like emboldened too, especially in like conversations with girlfriends. And as like I'm in my mid 30s, a lot of people are going through different like fertility journeys. And I think there's for me more to learn, but also like I want to continue to create safe spaces for my friends to not feel like they can't talk about this. And it's so interesting. I know, I'm sure you experienced this too from like being a female founder in a sexual health space and like trying to keep a business afloat. There's, we're for-profit companies. And so then having to educate people along the way as to like why they need to do this, it's such a challenge and an uphill battle, but it's one that further motivates me. And I try my darndest not to get preachy with people because I don't want to be like, this is the right thing to do, but more like coming from a place of curiosity of like, why are people sheepish about certain things, or why um, do people not want to invest in sexual health companies, and putting the curiosity back in their lap of being like, okay, I can talk till the cows come home about how great these products are, but clearly there's like a barrier. And so that has been a huge struggle. We have product companies, but it's an education company. So for me as like just a already wired, super passionate person, then getting into this industry, I have found myself in so many moments of like rage but like trying to like channel that into like curiosity and driving that into an area of like, okay, we have a problem here, what am I in control of on how we can like change this for the positive.
I wanted to kind of go back a little bit. Tell me about your products and what products you guys offer, and then we'll jump into like the trials and tribulations and like the boat that we have chosen to be on
Yeah.
as sexual wellness founders. But I want to back it up and tell me what products you guys offer, like how did that roll out? What was that experience like when you guys were creating these products?
I love that. And I also, for all the listeners, what is so awesome about having a friendship with someone like Kat is like there is no competition, it's co-opetition for me when there are more female founders in the space creating options for people. That's when I know we're winning. Like I'm here to make like the KYs and the Astro a little more irrelevant based off of ingredients and like messaging, and more like leaning into offerings like Head South and Personal Fave. So I'm like very grateful to be on this podcast and that this co-opetition exists.
I love that. And I just wanted to note too that like I don't look at us as competitors. Like I've been told like, well, these guys are your competitors. And I'm like, absolutely not. And I also feel like what we offer, like even if it is the same products in certain regards, it's not the same audience all the time. And so I have recommended and referred your product and your brand to people. And I know you guys do the same. And so and it's exactly that. I think Stephanie, the first time I met you guys, had said like, rising tides rise all ships. And so, yeah, we're all these little boats in sexual wellness trying to support each other, root for each other, and hold space. I always think of like Dr. Maria and I talked about it on the episode where I recorded with her and you introduced me to her. But it was the idea that, this pie is not limited. Like we could have, and we could always make more pie. And so we don't have to like divide and like fight each other and kind of compete with one another. We can actually support each other and root for each other and build our brands together.
I'll get into my products, I swear. But
Yes.
one more note on that. I was invited, Stephanie and I were invited to a JP Morgan dinner a couple of years ago. It was like CPG brands, and they like
Mhm.
called us and they're like, we do want to give you a heads up. Like there will be another sexual health and wellness brand there. Like, is that okay? And we were like, yeah. Did you call every like sparkling water brand and tell them that there was gonna be like 18 of them and like 14 different snack companies? Like, this is a good problem to have. Like, this is what we
Mhm.
want. So we're in alignment. I'm happy with it,
Yeah.
obviously. Hi. Now I'll get into my sales pitch. No, I'm just kidding. So we came to market with Wet, WHET, which is our water-based sex serum. We call our lubes sex serums and pleasure oils. We don't call them lubricants because of the types of filings you have to do. Again, that could be a whole other podcast. But this product we came to market with, instead for Stephanie had a pretty scary infection, and that's why she wanted to make this company from a really conventional product. And she wanted to start with a super stigmatized product too, which is obviously lube. And we wanted to create something so beautiful you could leave it out on your nightstand with zero shame and stigma. You want to look like a beauty product, and it's in a black glass bottle to protect the clean ingredients, and it has natural aphrodisiacs, latex compliant, it's edible, which is super fun, toy safe. And we really created these products as selfish millennial women that just like thought these plastic squirt bottles were disgusting and filled with nasty ingredients. And so the ripple effect of the audience has been wild. So this formula was maybe a year and a half ago, published in an academic journal and presented at a medical conference for advances in reproductive sciences. So it outperformed the number 1 fertility lubricant on the market called Pre-Seed. So it's safe to conceive with, but if you don't want to conceive, it's latex safe too. Then like the number 1 feedback we get on this is that it feels from vulva owners, it feels like they're like natural lubrication, like it doesn't feel like there's a third party in the bedroom. Which, unless you want that, amazing. And then a year after that, when I was we had a lot of funding at the Honest Company, but we came out with too many products instead of winning in our category. So we rolled out our products slowly, strategically, because we want to listen to our customers and give them what they want. We also just love packaging. So like these lines are like people coming together. These lines are like on your way to orgasm. We just geek out on that stuff. And then we created an oil base, and the oil base has 30 milligrams of full spectrum CBD. Also, this is actually a dark violet glass, just to get really geeky on you, but it presents black. And this is toy safe. It's not latex safe, and it works as a true vasodilator. So everywhere it's applied topically, it brings blood flow to the nerve endings, aka enhances arousal. I rub it on my stomach when I have period cramps. My husband uses it on like sore muscles after the gym. And it has real Bulgarian rose, peri postmenopause, our bangin' boomers. Love this. Love our bangin' boomers. And we've heard both are awesome for postpartum. Stephanie and I don't have kids, but like shout out to the moms, because when we take those journeys, we've heard postpartum sex is a whole journey in itself. And then a year ago, Cat has these, our wipes. We teamed up with a company called Biome. These wipes are made in the UK. They are flushable, pH matched after play, before play wipes. They're intimacy wipes. And this goes into like a lot of hygiene and self-care when it comes to pleasure. So that was another educational piece. I also like to use it as a gateway drug, because sometimes people are like, lube, what? And people know what wipes are. So they're so clean. I use them to take off makeup, use them on my pits after the Peloton. I know people use them at festivals because those festivals are dusty and nasty. They really are flushable. People are like, are they actually? And they're super duper thin, but they lock in a lot of moisture. I could go on and on and on, but I want to be aware of our time.
Yeah. No, I love that. Thank you for sharing that. I know that like what I love is hearing a little bit of the design story as well, because I didn't know that about like the
Isn't that
packaging
fun?
design. That's really cool. And I love that. I also know that you guys are both so proud of what you've created. And it's very infectious to see how proud you are of what you've done, because I think it's also what people don't recognize is that we are independent brands. So we aren't like majorly backed by huge funding or celebrities or things that kind of get people to reach audiences at a much rapid state. And so to be able to create and curate things a lot more slowly, and more intentionally is so important. So I think that's also where our 2 brands, as founders, what we've created, it speaks volumes. So it might not, hit everybody because we don't have the budgets to like reach out that far yet. I think that the intentionality makes such an impact, and knowing those little stories, those little details, like we've been friends for over a year now, and I didn't know those little design details. And I think it's so important to share that stuff, because it really shows like there are humans behind this brand who are thinking about the final customer using that, the people that are using these products, and how that feels. not just like physically feels the efficaciousness of the product and like all of that stuff, but like just how it feels on your nightstand when you look at it. And that's what I think we're both of our brands are very proud of, is like creating products that can live on the nightstand and you're not embarrassed in throwing it like in the drawer, someone's coming over, hiding it in a stash.
Completely. I love that both of our brands are so happy, like, and bright and colorful. Like that to me, I'm like, to your point, like it doesn't need to be seedy or secret or naughty. Like it's be bold, be loud about intimacy, be happy. Like I love the color of like everything in Head South. Like to me, I'm like, this is pleasure is fun. Let's have fun.
And then I was just going to take a quick little interlude before we continue on with the interview. One place that we met was at a trade show. So that was last year. That was my first trade show ever. And I mentioned, like, I met you and Stephanie, and it was like immediately swooped up, so warm and like connective. And it was such I loved being introduced into that community. Like, that's how I debuted, was like moved to California, went to this, uh, Vibe Expo. And so I want to highlight that this episode is sponsored by another trade show called Stimulate, which is a B2B sexual wellness trade show. My brother and I got to go last year in August, and it was such a wonderful event. It's held in Nashville on August 4th and 5th. And so if you're listening to this, if you have a sexual wellness brand, I highly recommend you look into Stimulate. It's at Stimulate the Show is their Instagram. You can find out more information. I wanted to share that like these types of shows and expos, especially for independent founded brands, is such a great way to make these types of connections and friendships. And I think the more that you can connect and like just learn, like a lot of what I've learned through this process of becoming a founder has kind of been, I don't know, it's just been such a wonderful thing to have, because I'm a solo founder. You have your co-founder, Stephanie, and it's been so nice to have like this network of people to kind of reach out to.
It's a
And so
community.
these, yes, it's a community. And so having these spaces like what Nicole and Dan have curated with Stimulate, these are spaces where you get not only get to meet buyers and retailers, but you also get to meet your peers and make friends. And so like throughout the year, I've hosted, giveaways and collaborations with the people I've met along the way. And so while like the return on the investment is the intention of getting new buyers to carry our products, one of the biggest returns I have had is through the networking and connections I've made and the support I've gotten in this community.
I love that. It's such a ripple effect. And I remember when you went
Yes.
last year, we sent our wipes, but I remember like hearing about your experience and like that the ROI can be qualitative. It's not always quantitative. So like
Mhm.
hearing about like your connection with Claire McCormack and like just continuing to build a community, and like the founder world can be so lonely and like especially in our space. So like the fact that like Stimulate has this area for people to come together, pun intended, is awesome. So I love that. Go Stimulate.
And then we'll move into, so as founders of sexual wellness, I'm sure, I mean, you and I have had many hikes where we've kind of talked about the censorship of it all. So I'd love to hear about what you guys have experienced, what you've seen shift and change, because you guys have been around for 4 years, as well as been developing prior to, what you've witnessed over the course of this time.
It's the censorship is it further motivates me, but it just shows how much work there needs to be, especially if like a platform like Instagram is where people can like express themselves, and like social media, it's like everyone's supposed to be able to have a microphone. And I think what really frustrates me is that like misinformation can be at the top of your algorithm, or hateful things can be at the top of your algorithm, but what we're doing, where we're trying to amplify pleasure and as a pillar of your wellness, gets censored as like adult. Pisses me off to like no greater. Like I can't, it's hard to put into words how frustrating it is. And I'm like, why am I spending so much time like begging my friends to like my Instagram posts on when like because I want other people to see it, right? Instagram is supposed to be a free channel where you can educate and express, and because of what we create and because of how I guess conservative maybe Meta is, that gets suppressed. And like how can you have a free voice if like it's getting blocked all the time? And that is super duper frustrating. And again, like so much of it comes with pay to play too. So as small businesses, founders, like we don't have budget to put thousands of dollars behind a post. So you'll see it. And then I'll see companies about erectile dysfunction. When it's about men's health, that's top of the algorithm. And like, let's make sure these guys can have their boners. But like, if it's about closing the pleasure gap, that is like an afterthought. And so it's really frustrating, but it's so further motivating. And there's a handle center for like,
Center for Intimacy Justice.
yes,
Yeah.
they are doing great work on trying to even work with like Congress on lifting censorship because it goes back to the shame spiral. It goes back to like, this isn't a priority. And that to me is simply BS. And so we've tried like ways to like navigate that. And honestly, like we do get sales from Instagram, which is awesome, but platforms that feel safer and more open and more progressive are podcasts. We can actually talk about what we want to talk about without
Mhm.
people saying no, no, no. So like hope our brands continue to push the envelope and be bullish of like this isn't a naughty thing. I'm allowed to experience this and educate people around it, and more people should know. It's an uphill.
It's, yeah, I think that's the thing is that I think because there are bigger companies, like you mentioned, like erectile dysfunction companies or even Pornhub. Like
Yes,
I've seen stuff on Pornhub that I'm like, whoa, the fact that this is on Instagram is banana. So I understand why censorship exists, but it's not censoring the things that it should possibly be censoring. And it's censoring. And I know for a while there, they had AI technology. They had removed their censors who were humans witnessing and observing and like making the call. And they shifted to AI, which was then kind of just blanketed. Like if it looked somewhat like sexual wellness, if it smelled like sexual wellness, like felt like anything that it would like pick up on the screen, it would remove it. If the words, like that's why you'll see, and people who are listening who aren't so familiar with this, like we as brands, as sex educators, sex therapists, can't even say the word sex unless you have like what you mentioned, the pay to play pass. So pay to pay pass is like being as big as Pornhub, being a legacy brand, something that's existed for so long that you already have an audience, something that is backed by a celebrity and or lots and lots of funding that can then kind of weasel your way through the system and make it so that you can be visible. Whereas like smaller independent educators, brands, and therapists, and even sex workers, sex entertainment, those, it's non-existent. And it's why like platforms like OnlyFans exists and why a lot of creators are moving to that platform.
completely.
And I was curious if you guys have considered, I've been seeing a lot of brands now kind of moving to OnlyFans or moving over to Substack or creating podcasts because of how limited Meta and TikTok even. I was so surprised because when I started kind of thinking about doing Head South, TikTok was like the Wild West. And like it was
Right?
so great. Like there was so much growth. It was like around like just post pandemic 2021. And then all of a sudden like things started getting, and I think it's, I mean obviously they've been dealing with the sale and all of this stuff, so it's become more and more regimented and restrictive on TikTok, where I was like, oh wow, the growth and like what used to happen for people under the category umbrella of sexual wellness is no longer happening. So I was curious how you and Stephanie kind of are approaching this, or what platforms or modes of communication have you guys considered?
We're definitely open to exploring OnlyFans because we also want to continue to help diffuse shame and stigma around sex work and those content creators. So that's like a total no-brainer. We've also talked about Substack too. I fully admire you as a solo founder that you have a brand and a podcast and all the other things you do because like you should see us. We like are like boomers trapped in millennial bodies. Like it takes us like 4 hours to like do a TikTok. It's ridiculous. So I'm like, oh my gosh, like it feels like doing a Substack is like a whole other, like in addition to that. But if that's going to be our pathway to like be able to speak more openly and like gather an audience there, then bring it on. Because the fact that I have to like write segs or like I can't even say vulva or vagina without like getting a slap on the wrist is like so stupid. And like so I'm just over that and want to like go somewhere where I can speak freely without feeling like I'm gonna get in trouble for talking about my anatomy. It's so bonkers to me.
A little piece of like advice I want to share with you guys because I noticed you guys are so good at LinkedIn. So good. That to me is like such a foreign place. I try to get on there. It's so weird how all of these different platforms have different feelings. Like it's still on the same phone and like whatever it is, it's like there's certain spaces on the internet, on in the digital realm that feel so comfortable and safe or so easy and intuitive, and then some that feel so foreign. And one of those spaces is for me, that feels so foreign is LinkedIn. And I have to say, you and Stephanie are so great at that. And I also recognize that, like, we, I think about, I had heard this quote of like, we easily can open up all the tabs and be on all the spaces, but we are like, yes, I am a solo founder. You guys are just a duo and predominantly doing all the things. And yet our brands look and feel and can compete with and be lined up with bigger conglomerates that have like multiple teams building these companies and agencies, like marketing agencies and branding agencies. And yet, like, it's one or two people behind the scenes for us independent brands creating this. And so we don't have to be in all those lanes and we don't have to be in all those spaces as much as, and it's something that I had to like, I tried to do that when I first came out and like got on TikTok, got on this. And then I recognized like, this is just me spinning my wheels. And if I can kind of start to slow down and just be like, this is where I'm going to focus and put all of my energy, and also, whatever those two or three lanes, like I don't have to be in all 10 spaces. And maybe that's not even where my audience is. You know what I mean? Like that's not where the people that I want to connect with live in the digital realm. So I think it's been helpful for my mental health to kind of scale back and recognize that like these bigger people that are on everything, every platform, you see
Really,
them
they have
everywhere.
big teams, a big
They're able to do that
budget.
and that's okay.
Yes, solely focused, like their social media person. And I'm like, I am not a TikToker.
Mm-hmm.
Email marketing. So like
Mm-hmm.
it's so refreshing the almost like boundaries that you properly create and like how you are so intentional with each lane you go in because we're like stretched so thin that we're like, well, we have to do this and we have to do that. And then like instead it makes us more reactive than proactive. And that can like feel like it can stunt you because you're just playing whack-a-mole, it feels like, to like do all the things you're supposed to do. So thank you.
Yep. And I was encouraged by someone last year who was advising me about the podcast and like she was kind of giving an audit of my brand and looked at our Instagram and all those things. And she said to me, upon looking at this, I would think, and I feel the same way about you guys in Personal Fave, like looking at it, it looks like a bigger company is behind this. And so you actually have to speak a little bit louder and share more about how you're independent. And I use the word independent because that recently came into my my vocabulary of I want to remove the word small because my mantra now is there's nothing small about this business. I had seen that on Instagram. A small business owner had shared that and like posted about like there's nothing small about this. We keep calling ourselves small. And yes, we're up against bigger, broader conglomerate corporate folks, but nothing that we do is small. Everything we do is
Love.
intentional and very, very time consuming, energetically consuming, intentional. And so I want to like advocate for that and kind of point that out that like from the outskirts, you can look at this and go, wow, these brands are like, they're everywhere. They're doing things. They're on these shelves. I saw them there. And yes, but we're also like, you want to make sure that people know that you are independent and small so that they can support the smaller brands because they don't know, like we look so good. It's one of those, like, it's a great problem to have. We look so good and we're doing all the things and we're jumping through all the hoops and we're here, we're there, we're everywhere. And I mean, I'm sure you guys get these emails of like people reaching out being like, hey, can I speak to the head of marketing? Can I speak to and I'm like, you got her.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
like I'm the social media person. I'm the founder. I'm the
Exactly.
CEO. I'm doing the development of the product. I'm hosting the podcast and I'm the producer. Yeah. So we wear so many hats. And I think it is that is proof in the pudding that like it appears to be much bigger than we are. And that's such a great thing, but it's also like it's a double-edged sword of like, oh wow, we're creating this persona that it's bigger because we have to and we want to be seen up against the big dogs, but we are also like um we need to highlight that like this is not easy work, and we've chosen the entrepreneurial path. And yeah, that I want to encourage people to support smaller female founded brands, especially, and like queer founded brands, BIPOC founded brands, like getting to know who is behind the brand, the people behind the products versus just going for the product, and like actually understanding that there's real people behind certain brands, and then there's faces that
completely.
are, I don't want to, I feel like we've been shifting into like celebrity packaged goods versus consumer packaged goods. And I'm hoping that phase of like celebrity and influencer, not to rag on anybody. And I know that there are some brands that are really founded by celebrities or influencers who those people are actually really involved with their companies. And then there are some that are just like, they just signed off on, like, it's what used to be known as a sponsored deal. And they're
1000%.
actually not involved in the company.
Creative officer, and they
Yeah.
do like an appearance at a Target, and then like I hear you, it takes away the special humanness for like a splash of like, ooh, so and so put their name on this, and it's like, but
Mhm.
did they, or did they get a fat check?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
like, what's actually happening? And so I really appreciate vocalizing and showcasing further, like highlighting that we're independent brands. Like, yes,
Mhm.
we're cosplaying as the big dogs, but like it's a strength to showcase that we're small and
Mhm.
or not small. I loved that like mantra that you saw. So that's something I get to take away from this. Thank you.
And then to just wrap it up, what do you see for personal fave? What are the next paths? And like, share what you can. You don't have to share everything, obviously, but like, how do you see this going for you guys, and where do you see it leading to?
There are definitely like products in the pipeline that we have samples of, but also that we daydream about. I think it's really fun. Like, continue to daydream if you're an entrepreneur listening to this. Like, just because it seems impossible and you don't have all the funding doesn't mean like it won't happen down the road. So we love like thinking big, even if it's not in our wallet. So that is going to continue to be a huge thing for us. I want the ripple effect of our products to really have that, like what we were talking about earlier, empower people to have those conversations. Like, this is out on your bedside table and you're going to use it, and that's great. But also, like, can that create just like seeing it as a reminder, create deeper connection with your partner, and you guys talking about things on an intimate level that maybe you haven't talked about before? Or how does it go further into education about sexual health? Like, I think there's a ripple effect with these independent brands that can be greater than our products in terms of lifestyle and the feeling that you can create in the community. So I'm very grateful for that. And I would love, when we get proper funding, to do more research on like claims and clinicals, because as a small brand, we can't even smack like the word organic on our products, even though everything is organic, because that costs something. So we've gotten anecdotal feedback from a lot of our customers on like, wow, this helped with X, and wow, this helped with XYZ. And like, so being able to like get more science behind things so we can make these claims to like tell people, get this in your hands, would be awesome. So that's my ramble of being like, I can't wait to be bigger than like what we already are. Even now, like what you were saying really rung true as this like cosplaying as like these big brands. Like, sometimes Stephanie and I are like, oh my gosh, this is, and it's a champagne problem, getting bigger than ourselves. Like, this is wonderful. But I'm like, whoo, okay, we are not ready for that next thing, but like it's coming our way, which is, again, very exciting. But there's so much lack of funding and support for female founders. And then it's CPG, and then it's in sex. So like, we're tiny on the map when it comes to getting support. You get it. You
Mhm.
totally get it. And so,
Mhm.
also, if you're listening and you know investors, tell them that Kat and Hannah have amazing brands.
Yeah. I love that. Support us. Yeah. Support sexual wellness, support female founded brands, queer founded brands, brands that are trying to do something different and destigmatize these conversations around sex and the experience, especially around female pleasure.
Doing well by doing good.
Hannah, thank you so much for joining me. We're going to wrap up now. Is there anything else you needed to close with or wanted to share? How do people find Personal Fave?
Yes, since we are shadowbanned, you have to spell out the entire handle, which is amazing. So Personal Fave Co. Fave is FAVCO, and that's our handle for all social media. And again, like it feels so silly to say, but getting engagement on those platforms really means so much to us. We put so much work into them, but we're
Hmm.
constantly shadow banned. Our website is personalfave.co. And if you're in New York, we're in Happier Grocery. We're in sex shops nationwide. And our wipes are going to be in FabFitFun again. So, yes, but really just to like echo what Kat said, continue to support independent brands. We're putting literally blood, sweat, and tears into this. Thank you, Kat.
Thanks, Hannah.